Bush said, listen, this is no problem. All we need is a fire and a lizard. And so he arranged for logs to be brought, to be piled in the village high. He arranged for them to be set on fire until the flames were leaping into the sky. And he got a lizard and he brought that as well. The lizard was placed into the fire. And then the old man said, here's the way it is. If the lizard burns up in the fire, then the youth will remain dead. If the lizard can be pulled out of the fire by someone here, the youth will come back into life. That's the way it is. Well, you can imagine. The mother of that youth had great feeling, and she went towards the fire to get the lizard out, but the flames were hot and she could not penetrate them, and she came back. And the father of the youth, well, he was deeply involved as well, and he went forward and tried to get through the flames to the lizard, but could not make it, for he was driven back by the heat of the fire. But the maiden, she jumped right into the center of the fire. She grabbed the lizard and she jumped right out again and said, here it is. And at that moment, the youth entered life again. Pretty good, huh? Pretty good story, huh? You think that's the end of it? Oh, no. Something says it doesn't end there. What happened then was, the old man said, okay, now the situation is this. If this lizard continues to live, then the maiden will die. If this lizard is killed, then the maiden will live, but the mother of the boy will die. And the question is, what would you do? Kill the lizard and allow the maiden to live, or allow the lizard to live and cause the maiden to die? Kill the lizard and cause the mother to die? What would you do? It's up to you. You would kill the lizard? If the lizard dies,
Mother of the son.
the mother dies. If the lizard lives, the maiden dies. And the question was put to the young men in the tribe. Now, of course, they're not speaking concretely. People have been jumping in and out of fires. Strange things have been going on. They're talking metaphors. They're talking of issues of the psyche and issues of mythology. And you could say in a way that it's saying, unless this lizard dies, the youth will remain the son of his mother, and he will never see that maiden. He will never see her. She will die. He will stay in that state.
So you're not talking about the mother actually dying here?
Not at all. Well, let's go back a little bit, because the father gives some information to the son. Now, the son doesn't follow the direction of the father. Now, this has a resonance. If you remember the Garden of Eden, it went that way also. Snakes, lizards, dragons, they're similar. So there's something that is true that the father is saying, as it turns out, but it's not the truth for that son at that time. And his going into life means going against that advice of the father. The son has to make a move towards something in life that is dangerous.
So you're saying that in a way the father is not a pal here and never is, but the father says something and lays it down, and the son has to go against that to come into life.
To come into life, into love,
Okay.
into many, many things. It's as if the father is saying that life is dangerous. Life, in life you find death, so don't go in. There's some way in which a father communicates that. For some reason, a man becomes a father, and he immediately starts to put rules and regulations and restrictions around everything he encounters. It comes with the territory of being a father. And so that's what a father does. Now, the son's in a completely different position. He has to get into the world in some big way. And so you could also say that the maiden, in a sense, is the old business of the soul. The son has to go out and encounter soul in the world, is one way to look at it. And when that happens, that son that was is dead. He dies.
So the soul is the only one who can do it.
There's some relation to the soul, and when maiden is said, it implies beautiful maiden and so on.
So that's why you don't say girl. I notice you say maiden
Yes.
in these situations.
Yes. It's the same old maiden that's in the fairy tales and all of that. And that's
so this
what
is a
can go
completely
in.
masculine story in the sense that there's no woman in it. The woman does not save him from the fire. It's a soul that saves him. His soul, is that right?
I think for what we're doing now, we
Okay.
could look at it as the feminine soul aspect of the man. Now, just to jump to the end of it,
Yep.
what happens at this point, I think, is critical in the business of masculinity. In order for this youth, or any youthful parts of ourselves, to move out of the area of being a child into the area of relationship, let's say,
Yeah.
the focus has to switch from the mother to some beautiful aspect of the soul, to some ideal, to something meaningful in life, and it's often done through a woman, you know, through marriage or relationship. And it can be a woman, but it also is that business of the meaningfulness of the soul, the ideals.
So
of
if the
what's
son
beautiful in life.
prefers the beauty of the mother, so to speak, to the beauty of his own soul, then that soul's going to die.
Yes.
The comfort of the mother.
I was going to say,
Not the beauty, the comfort.
the comfort of going back home with the lizard and the mother and curling up by the hearth and doing all of that again. And it posits at the end of the story the necessity of the youth to kill. We're back into the warrior thing. He's going to cut that lizard. He's going to take the lizard out of life, even though the lizard has been part of what saved him. And he has to, along with that, maintain a vision of the maiden. It's the vision of the maiden that allows him to kill the lizard of childhood,
Yeah.
the lizard of being held. And when they say mother, they don't mean biological mother. They mean all those things that mother. It can be welfare. It can be, anything that causes comfort and constant security or inertia.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great story, Michael.
They used to say, men are not grown, they're made. And most tribal and most cultures had initiations for the males. A distinct interruption of the childhood and a pulling of that youth into the world of manhood. And one of the reasons for it is a certain psychic inertia that builds up as the youth is approaching the next stage, let's say somewhere in adolescence. Besides the growth of the body, there is an inertia developing in the psyche that resists that next stage. And it was the job of the older men to come in and pull that youth as if through a ring into the next stage of life. In the tribal cultures, the youth would be matched with the older men that have that same style of life, that same sense of life. The old men would see the youths coming along, and they would say, oh, look at him now. He has that way of putting his face into the wind, the way the warrior does when he's walking the border of the territory. Look at him. He has that way of following the movement of the bird, that kind of thing. And I think what happens now is the boy is looking at the father to carry the entire adult masculine world, and no father can do it or ever has done it. And as they used to say, that the grandfather and the grandson have something in common. That is a common enemy, the father. See, the father is in this terrible position. He never could satisfy his own father's expectations of him, and somehow he can't manage to give his son what he wants either. And then the grandson can reach around and somehow see the grandfather, see the grandness of the grandfather, and the grandfather can look down and see the, the potential and the beauty of that grandson, and so the nurturing goes that way. And then the word grandfather was not a biological word exactly.
Yeah.
It meant the old fathers.
Did I tell you what happened at Moose Lake this year? I gave a Valentine's Day poetry reading in the fairy story, and I did Rapunzel. And I asked the people in the audience, how old were you when your golden hair was cut off? And everybody understood that. And then later, at a little party at my house, a young man came up and he said, I didn't want to say because I was shy, but I was 15. And he said, I had long golden hair. And my family said I had to cut it off. And I said, no. And I said, what happened? He said, they cut it off. They cut it off, all right. And he said, I was there weeping and beating my fists on the floor. And my grandfather came in.